Welcome everybody. Welcome to Chrysalis on the Couch and welcome to the Chrysalis YouTube channel. We hope by now that you've found our channel and that you've subscribed to our channel, but if you haven't, then do feel free, please, to subscribe. We'd love you to. If you enjoy this episode of Chrysalis on the Couch, then do press that like button. And of course, there are many more episodes that are available to you to watch as well. So my name is Lorna Caldwell, and I am a tutor at Chrysalis, as are Marion and Cila, both of whom are joining me today. Today we have a specific topic in mind, which we'd like to discuss with you, which is talking about, do we have to be perfect to be a therapist? And we've just been having a sort of brief chat among ourselves regarding this topic and realized that it's actually a really huge topic. So, but without further ado, I'm going to introduce everybody here. So as I said, my name is Lorna, and Mer, you are a tutor for Chrysalis and you are teaching the counselling course, is that right?
Yeah, year 3 in counselling. Yeah, and then moving to year 2 in 2022.
Right.
So
okay.
Just.
And you I teach at the Newcastle venue, and you're teaching where?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I should say that, shouldn't I? I'm currently teaching at Edinburgh, at the Queen Margaret University, and then moving to the Glasgow venue in January of 22.
Right. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. And Cila, welcome. So you are teaching our hypnotherapy course.
Yes, I'm currently teaching year 1 students in London. I'm very much enjoying that, and hoping to be teaching year 2 and year 3 soon as well myself.
Excellent, excellent. So we are spread far and wide across the UK today, which is which is always great, I think, because that's the way that we promote and offer our courses. But anyway, to our topic. So our topic for today. So do you have to be perfect to be a therapist? Well, yeah, I think that sometimes we can get the kind of mistaken impression that yes, we do, that we have to, that we have to have perfect lives and we have to have everything sorted in life, and we have to recognize that we've never put a foot wrong in life, and we don't put a foot wrong either in our personal life or in our professional life as well. I mean, for my part, I feel that there's definitely, there's some boundaries between when we're at work and when we are not at work as well. But this idea of perfection, this idea of, we have to be sort of totally sorted individuals and always respond in the right way. It's a hard one for me to actually sort of, to think, well, yes, we would have to take that on board, because it doesn't naturally sit for me alongside being a genuine person and accepting who I am. And it's hard to have that atmosphere of acceptance, which is so much part of what a therapist is.
Well, that's right. I wouldn't mind making a difference in here between professional standards and perfectionism, because as a professional therapist, we're thriving to be aiming to be meeting professional standards.
Yeah.
And I think this is what you are referring to, as opposed to perfectionism, because what is perfect? Is there such thing as perfect? I mean, there are things that are deemed to be perfect in nature, such as the spider web. It's spider web. It's perfectly done, or certain flowers and stuff. So there are stuff in nature that are deemed to be supposed to be perfect. But us as human beings, we are far from being perfect in any shape or form. And the moment we are striving for perfection, that's the moment that we are setting ourselves up for failure, because human beings are all fallible. We're all fallible. So we talked about it earlier. So I see human beings as fallible, and then this is what makes us different from a computer, because when you press the button on a computer, it comes up with the same answer each and every single time, unless the computer is faulty. However, us human beings, as we forever evolve and we forever change by our own personal development, we cannot possibly have the same answer to the same things over and over and over again, because at one point it will change. So as a result, we are fallible, and we're different, and we will be giving different answers.
Yeah.
So there's no such a thing as a perfect human being.
And yes, I mean, can you imagine conducting therapy sessions with clients where we always give the same answer? So, you know, I mean, that would be, you know, that would be an extraordinary kind of session, wouldn't it? And the same answer to what? Because it's not going to be the same question, first of all, is it?
Well, thriving for perfection, we'll just set ourselves up for failure. And as a result, we'll constantly be anxious. So it's an anxiety-provoking demand on self that I must be perfect. Yeah. Well, it's impossible. And then once I set myself up for an impossible task, I'm going to be anxious at all times, and I will fail.
Yeah, and you know, and I hear what you're saying, Cila, regarding the, you know, the difference between perfectionism and professional standards. You know, so, you know, whatever career somebody decides to, you know, to follow, then, you know, I think, well, I mean, I might be generalizing here even to say that most of us probably want to do well in that career, whatever that career may be.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we work hard to understand our profession and to, you know, to work on their skills and so on. But that's still not the same, is it, as, you know, as this concept of needing to be perfect. And I'm wondering what your views there are, Mer.
I think using myself or the students that I've taught as an example is, you know, how I look at it. When I think of you know, I've worked with students who are getting both their bachelor's and master's and PhDs, and to see the difference in someone who starts as a new therapist when they're, you know, getting their bachelor's degree to a PhD, there's such a huge difference in that person. Mainly because I think there is a kind of an expectation of what a professional psychotherapist should be or look like. And I think that's kind of blown out the water quite quickly. I hope it is for a lot of people who are in our field. And something that's just so important to me, and when I teach also, and just about myself as a therapist, is the idea of just being able to connect with my therapist, that therapeutic relationship, that comfortableness, feeling genuine, that relationship. But just the whole idea of, it's so important to me to be down to earth and be myself. So I can't imagine what, you know, if I think of myself 25 years ago starting out in this field, I think there was an idea of I had to be a certain therapist, a certain way. I don't feel that anymore. But that's came with experience. It's came with my education. It's came with many client hours, private practice, and working with clients to kind of understand that, again, it's like Cila's saying, just that there's no such thing as perfection for a human being, and to be comfortable sometimes with the uncomfortable aspects of who you are as well. I know it sounds goofy, but it's kind of, you know, we are who we are, you know,
exactly.
You know, so that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm in real agreement with you there. It's, you know, I mean, I think that, you know, my personal journey has definitely been one of, okay, well, you know, here I am, you know, here I am. I accept that you know, that I like to do my best. I also accept that I haven't necessarily always done my best in everything, you know, but I can endeavor to do that. And, you know, otherwise, you know, otherwise we're kind of, you know, we're kind of setting ourselves into that corner, aren't we? Where essentially we're doing what, you know, most, if not all, of the therapy approaches tell us, okay, well, this is the best direction to go in, which is, okay, don't try to present a mask, don't try to hide behind something, don't be a persona. But even then, it's like, well, if we're trying too hard to not do that, then we're still not in that place of acceptance, are we?
No,
And
can turn on us too.
Yeah, so just to kind of like, okay, here I am, and I'm offering what I hope will be helpful, and and I believe that is good enough, and I hope that it is, and sometimes it will be, and sometimes it won't. But I'm realistic to know that I am not the answer for everyone who might come to see me.
I wonder what perfect means in this particular sentence. I mean, do you have to be perfect to be a therapist? So if we were to replace that word, or if we were to be just talking about that word in a bit more detail, then maybe we could get to somewhere. So I wonder what's the expectation on a therapist is.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question, Cila, because before we came online today, I actually looked up the dictionary definition of perfect. And of course, there isn't a perfect definition, so there are several, which is really interesting in itself, isn't it? But I got everything from being thoroughly skilled and suited for purpose, which I think is an interesting one.
Thoroughly.
Right down to without defect or blemish, no mistakes or flaws. And I think that is, that's probably going back to your example, Cila, of, okay, well, a computer can function perfectly for what it is designed to do without mistakes or flaws.
Or flaws. Well, that is not a human being.
Certainly not. No, certainly not.
As human beings, we are wonderfully imperfect, aren't we? And we have our own flaws and faults. And I think with the work that we do, is the main aspect of our work is to help our clients to get them to accept us, to accept themselves as they are, with their wonderful imperfections and with their lovely faults and flaws.
Yeah, that's so true, isn't it? And on our own journey, on our own training journey, then that's part of the training journey as well, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So it's Jung, isn't it, that sort of introduced the concept of Chiron, the wounded healer, and how having an understanding of the experiences that people can go through by perhaps having had some of those experiences ourselves, or been around people who've had those experiences, and and being able to reflect on and look back and process who we are and those experiences, and to recognize that not only can we not be perfect, but we don't have a perfect life either, and stuff comes along and knocks us flat sometimes, and sometimes very flat for a very long time.
Yeah.
And as therapists, we can't avoid that either. We might be able to develop some good resources and be more resilient, but things can still come along and knock us flat.
Mm-hmm. I'm just shaking my head vigorously when you said that there, because just I know when we were talking there, Lorna, before we started this, and just thinking about the last 2 years even of my life, how it's probably it has impacted me professionally, how my personal life has been, with the upheaval of moving jobs, moving homes, a bereavement, getting COVID, my whole family coming down with COVID. One of my family members been hospitalized with it recently as well, been very ill. These are all kind of things that impact you as a clinician. And there's no such thing as perfection. And I know, excuse me, I think our job is so much harder to do when your outside personal world is swirling and there's so much going on. for you. I know it is for me. And there's no way that there's any idea of this perfection, you know, whereas I think, you know, I like to be honest with my clients to a certain extent, being clinically appropriate, of course, but just being honest with them about, you know, hey, I have moments in my life that turn me upside down and have swirled me around, and, you know, and I've really had to kind of grab on and just keep going, just try to keep going somehow and not become too overwhelmed. But there's no way of me trying to keep everything perfect. I have no control over any of it. Just, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind going back to the original and the first definition that Lorna you had for perfect. What was that again? Thoroughly skilled and
Suited for purpose.
And suited for purpose. Well, you can kind of understand, or that there's something in there that if you're a therapist and then you have a client coming to see you, clients do have expectations of their clinicians, don't they? So they do expect you to be skilled, and they do expect you to be fit for purpose.
Yeah, I'd agree.
So there's an expectation, but then thoroughly skilled. What does that mean? I mean, how skilled do you need to be, and what are the skills? I mean, obviously, when it comes to therapy, we know that there are all different ways of treating something. There are all different modalities. There's the cognitive way, there's the original psychoanalytical way, there's the person-centered. There's all the different ways of treating people. But yes, we can learn most of these, and yes, we can be fully suited. But as to perfect, is that the right word to use?
No, yeah, exactly. And as you're talking there, Cila, it reminds me of the Gloria videos, and you know, which you know, we direct a lot of students towards seeing, and you know,
which videos?
The Gloria videos. And you know, there are, you know, 3 therapy sessions with the same client for the same presenting issues, with incredibly skilled therapists who have developed the approaches, and yet here they are giving 3 completely different sessions to the same client for the same issue. And it's like, so, you know, so which one's perfect? You know, so, you know, all of them, none of them. Yeah. So, you know, each one different and brings something there to the session that's really important. And yet at the same time, you know, none of them really cross over in what they're doing. And, you know, when I think about those videos as well, and, you know, I mean, they're very old now, but you know, Fritz Perls, for example, is there smoking away, Gloria smoking away. And, you know, I mean, in a way, I think that's, you know, just how we have moved socially might be making a difference here as well. That there may have been, you know, a different kind of acceptance of what therapy is and how to conduct therapy at a different time. And maybe, you know, these days, you know, we do feel more driven towards this, you know, this perfect set of skills, this, you know, being very robust and resilient. And I don't know, what do you think?
Also, every client is different. Every human being is different, and there's no such thing as one fits all. So that's why it's good to know different ways of attacking the same issue. So it's very helpful to know what a cognitive approach is. It's helpful to know what Ellis is, what Beck's version is of the cognitive approach. Also, it's very good to know what hypnosis is. It's good to know how different ways of attacking a specific issue or treating a client, because every client is different and they'll be responding to the modality differently, because they might not like a very direct cognitive approach. They might prefer some sort of a little bit more playful, like a Gestalt type of approaches to get to the same place, because the idea is we get to the same spot at the end, which is emotional change, some sort of an acceptance. But as to how we get there, there's no such thing as a perfect way, because it depends on the client.
Indeed. So, but my point there, Cila, was that actually this was the same client that you know, but who was still benefiting from those very different approaches. It's, you know, it's I come back to those videos often because I think that they are, you know, they are so interesting to watch, but grainy and hazy, of course. What's your thoughts there?
Well, while you guys were discussing that there, I was just thinking to myself, you know, we can have all the skills and know all the modalities in the world, but if we don't have an ability to connect in a genuine, warm fashion with our clients, then none of those skills will matter. I don't think none of those modalities will matter. You know, I know for me as a therapist, connectedness is so important. Comfortableness is so important for me when I've been in therapy myself, as well as when I'm supervising students as well. And so, you know, I think it's amazing that, you know, we have all of us sitting here in this room are you know, all are very skilled therapists in our own way, and trained in many different areas of the field of psychology and counseling. But if we're not warm or genuine or down to earth, I think a client zeroes in on that really fast. I think they get it really fast too. What I see a lot of times working with students and in myself too, I've seen this, you know, way at the beginning of my career, was that kind of robotic, like, fear or inability to connect, or like just to, you know, that I would somehow be, you know, they would know I didn't have experience, or they would know I wasn't you know, the perfect therapist, when in actual fact it was really just about being me, just being me, being genuine, being warm.
That's so true. Yeah.
And you know, and again, 25 years later, I'm still connected. I'm still looking for that in people that I work with, that I teach with, the students, you know, people in my life personally, like just that whole idea of that. And I think it's a simple thing to teach, and it's such an important thing for people, for new therapists to understand and to kind of nourish it throughout their career. And I don't think it comes along, I think you can be that person, but I think it comes along with the experience and the education all mixed together as well.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you. It's you know, it is it's just the one thing that is so important, isn't it? Is that, you know, is that the person who we're sitting with knows that we are, you know, that we are genuinely listening, we're genuinely interested in what they have to say, and we're genuinely trying to work out, you know, how they can make sense of it, and you know, that involves being able to come comfortably to a stage where we haven't got that little voice, you know, running through our mind that we're paying attention to. What should I say? What's the right thing? What should I do now? And, you know, and those questions come kind of thick and fast at the beginning, don't they? What would you do if? What would you do if? And it's like, well, what would I do? What would I do? Well, I guess I would do what I felt was right at the time, depending on where I was and what was happening. And it's that, you know, it's just that. It's like, okay, and that might not necessarily, on reflection, always be what I might have thought through later, but it was genuinely the best that I thought I could do then.
Yeah. Well, like it's, oh, sorry, Cila, go ahead.
There's a theory that comes to mind about that, is that at any given moment, a human being always does their best for that moment. So I think it's one of these NLP theories that, you know, at any given moment, whenever we are doing something, that's our best. So we do our best at that moment.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking that if we just concentrate on what we do as opposed to how well we do it, then all of a sudden, all anxiety, everything just lifts. And then you actually end up doing really well.
That's the thing, isn't it? You know, being able to kind of relax into who we are.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of flows, doesn't it? And you know, that's the same as mastery in all kinds of different directions, isn't it? So you know, you can watch somebody who has skills in certain direction and it's effortless, you know, whatever it might be, you know, whether they are constructing something or involved in some sport, it's effortless. But you know, but the effort that has gone into kind of reaching that position is, you know, can be sort of quite a lot in terms of work and time, but the intention that is there as well. But I am just aware at the time, and there was I just wanted to kind of throw a question out to us here, because I think part of this topic as well is, you know, is actually asking ourselves, well, you know, yeah, what about other factors here? And what was just in my mind here was that there was a debate. I think it's going back a good, well, it's pre-COVID, so it's going back a while now. But there was a little bit of a professional debate. It was around the time of climate protests. And some therapists were questioning professional registers and saying, well, you know, so if I were to protest and get arrested and get a criminal record, then, you know, is that the end of my counselling career? And, you know, so and it was a debate which ensued because, you know, because we are expected to be good citizens, if you like, but then, you know, what's the limits there?
Well, it depends, because you can still be a therapist if, in my eyes, let's say if you have done stuff in the past, but then you changed your ways completely. So, because otherwise you wouldn't know what it's like to be that person. So, yeah, I mean, it depends on what the conviction is. I mean, if it's a minor conviction, I wouldn't be overly concerned about it. But yeah, and I think it definitely depends on the conviction, and it depends on when and how long and what it was.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine there are many excellent therapists working today who have
absolutely. I mean, just look at look at the ones who help in drug and alcohol services. So some of them, I'm not saying all of them, but some of them have been down that road themselves, and as a result, they are excellent therapists, and they are by far the best people to help. So you can't be prejudiced, you can't be discriminative. What's
your thoughts on this one, Mer?
Just agree. You know, I'm shaking my head there when Cila was saying that about the addiction field. You know, I'm a licensed addiction specialist as well, and one of my first supervisors was had spent time in prison for being involved in an assault as a young man, as a 16-year-old. This was in the United States. You know, the time he was in his middle 40s, late 40s, and I was starting out, so I'd be 21 then. And the experience that he brought to the table, and he was very upfront about his past and that he'd been in federal prison. But it didn't matter to me. You know, he took something from that. He was from a gang, you know, a neighborhood, and from a gang, and he'd grown up in that, as had his family members. And you know, I think he took a lot of that experience from that, you know, from that time in his life, and he turned it into a very positive experience, certainly, and then turned it into going back to, you know, going to university, going to college, and paying his way through and going into the addiction world, where he was recovering from alcoholism. But he'd been clean and sober for many years. So yeah, I totally agree with Cila. You know, those kind of things. I think the idea that you're just struck off and you don't get a second chance, because we all make, including myself, and when I think of myself as a teenager to I think of myself now in my, middle age, I'm a totally different woman. As was my colleague, and he used to go and do talks in schools and stuff too, but he was all tattooed and had the F word across his knuckles and everything. But honestly, one of the most skilled therapists I've ever met, and a true mentor of mine, and still in the field, still doing it in his 60s.
I can just imagine the progress he's gone through.
Yeah.
So talking about progress, so it's maybe best to strive for progress as opposed to for perfection.
Yeah. Indeed, yeah, indeed, and the idea of acceptance as well, and
totally.
And how there, how in therapy there can be no us and them. It's like, we are together. So the client may feel that they are in a position of so I'm not okay, you're okay, but actually, so if I'm saying I'm okay with everything that has been happening in my life and so on, and so therefore you're okay too, we're all okay, we're both okay. Mm-hmm. So the warmth there that can come in the relationship a lot quicker by knowing that this is one human being to another. And
yeah, and also, Lorna, not to judge a book by its cover. For me, I think being exposed to that world, working in I worked in a drug and alcohol rehabilitation for 15 years, and came across people from all walks of life.
Yeah.
Wealthy people, poor people, you name it, from bad neighborhoods, amazing, very wealthy neighborhoods. And it was just that non-judgmental stance you have to take on. And I think there's a certain amount, as a therapist, you shouldn't be too judgmental, nor should you be judgmental of yourself. Precisely. And where you've came from.
Yeah, precisely. Precisely.
And this colleague of mine had a self-confidence, because he'd been at the worst points in his life and watched people die around him due to drugs and alcohol, and he'd made it, and he'd taken that in a very positive manner later on in his life and turned it into something. But in no way did he think he was perfect. He was totally imperfect as a result of that, but that helped him in his career as a therapist.
Absolutely, absolutely, and goes back to your point, doesn't it, Cila, that we're all imperfect.
Yeah.
So I think sadly we're going to have to close here. I think maybe this is a topic that we might be picking up again in the future for sort of part 2, possibly 3, 4, and 5 as well, because I think that there's so much depth here. So I just want to say thanks to our listeners for tuning in today, and I hope this has been a useful discussion, and perhaps it's it's just motivated you to kind of think through what your idea of perfect is as well. So do remember, please, that if you've enjoyed this, then do like, do subscribe, okay? And thanks so much, and we hope to join you again really soon for our next episode. So thank you, and bye-bye.